I need to tell you about the night a stupid dare turned into the realest thing that's ever happened to me. Not because the dare itself mattered. Dares never do. But because of what happened the second I actually said the words out loud, before I'd even finished the sentence. My name's Dylan Carter. I'm 29. I work in commercial flooring estimates, which is exactly as thrilling as it sounds. And up until that night, I would have told you I was a pretty unremarkable guy at parties. I show up, I have 2 drinks, I laugh at other people's jokes, and I leave early enough that nobody remembers I was there. That had been the pattern for years. Comfortable, invisible, safe. It was my buddy Trey's birthday, a backyard thing with string lights and a speaker too loud for the size of the yard. Maybe 40 people crammed onto patio furniture that wasn't built for 40 people. I was standing near the cooler with a beer I wasn't really drinking, half listening to a conversation about somebody's fantasy football league, when Trey and 2 of his friends, Marcus and a guy named Big Sam, who I'd met exactly once before, decided the night needed a little chaos. Truth or dare, Marcus said, like we were 16 again. Everybody groaned, but nobody actually left, which tells you everything about how parties work. It rotated around. Somebody admitted to still sleeping with a nightlight. Somebody else had to text their ex something embarrassing, normal, harmless stuff. Then it landed on me. Dylan, Trey said, grinning in that way he does when he already knows he's about to ruin your night a little. Truth or dare? I should have said truth. Truth is always the safer play. But I'd had 2 beers, and I wasn't thinking about safety. Dare, I said. Trey looked across the yard, scanning, and his eyes landed near the back fence where a girl was sitting alone on the porch steps, half in shadow, scrolling her phone like she was counting the minutes until she could leave without it being rude. Go ask her to dance, Trey said. I followed his eyes. I knew who she was, sort of. Her name was Nora. She worked with Trey's girlfriend, came to these things occasionally, always sat a little apart, always left early. People had a word for her that I never liked. Quiet. Like that was the whole story. Like quiet was a flaw you needed to be coaxed out of instead of just a way some people choose to take up space. That's not even a real dare, I said, trying to play it off. There's no music she'd dance to. There's a speaker right there, Big Sam said. Make it real music. I looked at her again. She had dark hair pulled back loose, a denim jacket over a plain white dress, and she wasn't on her phone because she was bored exactly. She had the look of someone who'd learned that being busy with something in your hands is the easiest way to not be approached. Honestly, I almost didn't do it. I almost laughed it off, took the social hit, let them call me soft for the rest of the night. That would have been the old version of me, the safe version, the guy who leaves parties early so nobody remembers him. But something about the dare bothered me in a different way than it was supposed to. It wasn't that I didn't want to talk to her. It was that the whole setup felt cheap, like she was about to become a punchline in somebody else's story, the quiet girl who got pranked at a party. And I didn't want to be the guy who did that to her, even by accident. So I walked over, not because of the dare, because I didn't like what the dare was about to turn her into. She looked up before I even said anything, like she'd already clocked the whole exchange by the cooler, the laughing, the pointing chins. Her face didn't do the thing I expected. No bracing, no eye roll and wait. She just watched me approach with this calm, steady attention that made me feel like I was being read in real time. Let me guess, she said, before I opened my mouth. Truth or dare? You heard that, I said. I have ears, and your friends aren't exactly subtle. I sat down on the step below her, not next to her, giving her room. Okay, so you already know the setup. I'm supposed to ask you to dance. Supposed to, she repeated. Interesting way to phrase a question you haven't asked yet. That threw me a little. I laughed, actually laughed, the real kind, not the kind I do at parties to fill space. Fair. Let me start over. Don't, she said. I want to hear how you were going to do it. Were you going to make it a joke? Soften it so if I said no, nobody would notice you'd actually tried? I sat there for a second. She'd nailed exactly the version of the sentence I'd been building in my head. The safe version, the one with an exit built in. No, I said slowly. I think I was going to just ask. Then ask. So I did. I said, Nora, do you want to... And before I even got to the word dance, before the sentence had a shape, she said, yes. I stopped. You don't even know what I was asking. I know exactly what you were asking, she said, standing up and brushing off her dress. Your friends pointed at me, you walked over looking like a man being sent to defuse a bomb, and there's a speaker 20 feet away playing something with too much bass for a backyard. I'm not bad at math. Then why say yes before I finished? She looked at me for a second, and something in her expression shifted, less guarded, more amused, like she was deciding whether to give me the real answer or the easy one. Because most people don't actually ask, she said. They perform asking. They want credit for trying without the risk of being told no. You stopped halfway through the sentence like you were giving me room to interrupt. Nobody does that by accident. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just held out my hand. She took it. We walked over to the speaker, and I'll be honest, the song that was playing was some upbeat pop thing that had absolutely zero business being a slow dance, but we didn't really dance to it, so much as just stand there swaying like two people who'd agreed to something bigger than the music could hold. I could feel Trey and Marcus and Big Sam watching from the cooler, and for the first time all night, I didn't care. You know they're staring, I said. They've been staring at me all night, she said. Difference is, now they're staring at both of us, which is somehow less annoying. Misery loves company. Don't flatter yourself. I'm not miserable. I'm observant. Those people back there think quiet means lonely. It doesn't. It means I'm paying attention to things they're too loud to notice. I looked at her properly then, not the quick glance you give someone you're being polite to, but an actual look. She had this steadiness to her, like she'd already decided who she was a long time ago, and didn't need the room's approval to keep being that person. It was the opposite of how I usually felt at parties, where I was constantly adjusting myself to whatever the room wanted. So what have you noticed about me? I asked. That you almost didn't come over. I came over. After a pause. A real one. Most guys at that cooler would have turned it into a show, made it loud, made sure everyone clocked the bravery. You walked slow, like you were deciding something the whole way. I was. What were you deciding? I thought about lying, giving her something cute and harmless, but she had a way of making half-truths feel obvious before they even left your mouth. Whether I wanted to be part of making you into tonight's entertainment, I said. I decided I didn't. Her hand tightened slightly in mine, just slightly. That's the first honest answer anyone's given me at one of these things in a long time. We kept talking after the song ended, then through the next one. Then we drifted to the edge of the yard, where the noise dropped enough that we could actually hear each other without leaning in every sentence. I learned she did freelance graphic design, that she hated small talk so much she'd developed an actual physical tell, a slight tightening at the corner of her mouth whenever someone asked her what she did for fun, like it was a job interview. I learned she'd moved to the city 2 years ago after a long relationship ended quietly. No drama. Just two people who'd outgrown each other's expectations without noticing until it was too late to pretend otherwise. That sounds familiar, I said. Bad breakup? Not bad, just slow. The kind where nobody does anything wrong and you still end up alone in an apartment wondering what happened. Those are the worst kind, she said. At least with a bad breakup you get to be angry. Slow ones just leave you confused. Exactly. She studied me for a second. How long ago? 1.5 years. And you've been at parties since then doing what? The cooler thing? 2 beers, laugh at the right moments, leave before anyone notices you're gone? I felt my stomach drop a little, the way it does when somebody describes you accurately enough that there's no room left to deflect. How did you... Because that's what I do too, she said. Except I don't even bother with the 2 beers. I just sit on the steps and wait for it to be socially acceptable to leave. So we're the same kind of invisible. We were, she said. Tonight you walked over before you finished deciding to. I laughed at that, the kind of laugh that comes out before you can stop it, surprised out of you. You make that sound very poetic for something that started because my friends dared me. The dare's not the point, she said. The point is what you did with it once it became real. We ended up sitting on a low wall at the edge of the yard for almost an hour, the party noise behind us slowly thinning out as people started leaving. At some point, she pulled her jacket tighter against the night air, and I offered her mine, and she looked at me like she was deciding whether accepting it meant something she wasn't ready to admit yet, then took it anyway. Careful, she said, sliding her arms into sleeves too big for her. Chivalry makes me suspicious. Of what? Of people performing kindness because they want credit for it later. I'm not performing anything. You looked cold. I know, that's what makes it worse. She smiled, small but real. It's harder to be suspicious of someone who isn't trying to be noticed for it. I asked her why she always left parties early, and she got quiet for a second, the kind of quiet that isn't empty, just full of something she was deciding whether to hand over. Because most rooms make me feel like I have to earn the right to take up space in them, she said. Like being quiet is something people are waiting for me to apologize for or grow out of, so I leave before that feeling gets too loud. Tonight you didn't leave. Tonight somebody asked instead of performing, she said. That's different. I felt something shift in my chest, hearing that, this strange mix of guilt and gratitude. Guilt that I'd almost been part of turning her into a joke. Gratitude that I hadn't. I thought about all the parties I'd left early myself, all the rooms I'd quietly excused myself from, because nobody had ever asked me to stay in a way that felt real. Can I tell you something? I said. You've been telling me things for an hour. Why stop now? I think I've been doing the same thing you have, just from the other direction, leaving before anyone could really see me instead of leaving before I had to be seen. She looked at me for a long moment, and the porch lights caught something in her expression. Careful, considering, like she was weighing whether to let the conversation go somewhere it couldn't easily come back from. That's the most honest thing anyone said to me in 2 years, she said quietly. Trey found us eventually, stumbling over with that loose, delighted grin of someone who thinks he's responsible for something good happening. So, he said, way too pleased with himself, the dare worked out. Nora looked at him, unimpressed, but not unkind. The dare didn't work out. He did. Trey blinked, clearly not expecting to be corrected mid-victory lap. What's the difference? The dare was about making a scene, she said. He didn't make a scene. He just asked. Trey looked between us, something shifting in his face, like he was realizing the joke he'd set up had quietly become something he no longer had any ownership of. Okay, he said slowly. Fair enough. After he wandered off, Nora turned back to me. He thinks he gave us this. Did he? No, she said. He gave us an excuse. You're the one who actually showed up for it. The party thinned out around midnight, and I walked her to her car because that felt like the right thing to do. Not because I was performing chivalry again, just because I didn't want the night to end on a half-finished sentence the way it had started. At her car, she turned to face me, keys in hand, and for a second, neither of us said anything. The string lights from the backyard were still glowing faintly behind us, and the street was quiet in that specific late-night way where every sound feels closer than it actually is. So, she said, good dare, bad dare. Worst dare I've ever taken, I said. Best thing that's happened to me in a year and a half. She smiled at that, slow and real, no guard left in it. I want to see you again, not at a party, not with an audience deciding whether we're interesting. Yeah, I said. Me too. Coffee Thursday, she said. And don't perform asking me, just ask. I laughed. Nora, do you want to get coffee with me Thursday? Yes, she said, fast, the same way she had the first time, before I'd even fully finished the question. You really like doing that. I like that you keep giving me the chance to. We exchanged numbers right there by her car, and when she drove off, I stood on the curb for a minute, just replaying the whole night, the dare, the porch steps. The way she'd seen through every easy version of the moment and asked for the real one instead. Thursday came, and the coffee turned into a walk, and the walk turned into dinner the following week. And within a month, we'd stopped pretending either of us still needed an excuse to want to see each other. She told me later that the reason she said yes before I finished the question wasn't impulsiveness. It was that she'd spent 2 years watching people approach her carefully, cautiously, like she was a problem to be solved instead of a person to be known. And the second she felt someone ask without performing it, she didn't want to waste the moment deciding. 6 months in, she told me something that's stuck with me ever since. She said most people think being quiet is the same as being unsure, but she'd never been unsure about anything that mattered. She was just tired of explaining herself to rooms that hadn't earned the explanation. I hadn't earned it either, not really, not in that first minute. But I think what she heard in that half-finished sentence was someone who wasn't going to make her audition for being seen. We've been together over 2 years now. Trey still brings up the dare every chance he gets, like he's some kind of matchmaking genius, and Nora still corrects him every single time. The dare didn't do anything, she tells him. It just created the 5 seconds where somebody finally asked instead of performed. And honestly, looking back, I think that's the whole lesson in it. Not that dares lead anywhere good, because most of the time they really don't, but that the difference between making someone a punchline and actually seeing them can come down to one sentence, asked plainly, without an exit built into it. I almost didn't walk over that night. I almost let the easy version win, the joke, the show, the safe distance. But something in me knew that if I didn't ask for real, I'd be one more person who walked away from her without ever finding out who she actually was. She said yes before I finished the question. I think about that a lot, not because it was romantic, even though it was, but because it told me everything about how long she'd been waiting for somebody to stop performing and just ask. And I think about how close I came to being one more person who never did. So tell me, if your friends dared you to do something that could have gone either way, a joke at someone's expense or the start of something real, what would you have done in that 5 seconds before you opened your mouth? And have you ever had someone say yes to you before you even finished asking and realized afterward just how much that one word actually meant? Let me know down in the comments. And if this one hit you somewhere, do me a favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.